It began with a sentence that made the entire courtroom freeze. A billionaire heiress, standing before Judge Judy Sheindlin, leaned back in her tailored white suit, crossed her diamond-covered arms, and said with a smirk that could cut glass, "I own this courtroom." The audience gasped. The cameras caught every shimmer of arrogance in her smile. And for a split second, even Judy went still, not because she was intimidated, but because she already knew something that would turn this moment into one of the most replayed verdicts in television history. Her name was Vanessa Caldwell, the daughter of a real estate tycoon, known in Manhattan for her charity galas, designer gowns, and the trail of lawsuits she left behind. She had money, connections, and an ego inflated by a lifetime of never hearing the word "no." When she walked into Judge Judy's courtroom that morning, she wasn't there to seek justice, she was there to perform. Her pearls caught the light. Her heels echoed off the floor like a declaration of power. To her, this wasn't a courtroom, it was a stage, and she was the star. But across from her sat a woman who wasn't impressed by money. Judge Judy had seen it all, every scam, every sob story, every entitled voice that tried to twist the truth. And as Vanessa smirked through her opening statement, Judy's silence was not approval. It was calculation. Because behind that calm stare, Judy already knew something Vanessa didn't: she wasn't the one in control. Not today. What the audience didn't see at first was that before the hearing even began, Judy's clerks had handed her a folder, one marked with red tabs, quietly labeled, "Caldwell vs. Ruiz, Supplementary Evidence." Inside was a document that told a very different story from the one Vanessa was about to spin. A document that would, in less than 30 minutes, flip the entire courtroom upside down. Vanessa began her act with practiced confidence. Her voice was polished, her tone theatrical. "Your Honor," she said, "I am here today because a small-time event planner tried to destroy my reputation. She posted lies online, claiming I refused to pay her for a charity event. It's false. All of it. I'm a respected businesswoman. I give back to my community. I've raised millions for children's hospitals. And now, my good name is being dragged through the mud by someone who just wants attention." She said it like she'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror, and maybe she had. Her lawyers nodded, her assistant looked proud. But Judy didn't blink. She simply leaned back, eyes narrowing, as if measuring every syllable. Then, softly, she said, "You're claiming this woman defamed you. And you're saying you paid her, in full, for her services?" Vanessa smiled, almost amused. "Of course. I always pay my bills. I'm not like those people who live paycheck to paycheck." That one sentence, the smug dismissal of "those people," shifted the air in the room. The audience straightened. The clerk paused mid-note. Even the camera operator seemed to sense what was coming. Because when arrogance meets justice, something powerful always happens. What Vanessa didn't realize was that Judy's question wasn't casual, it was a setup. A quiet invitation to walk into her own trap. And Judy already had the proof that the payment Vanessa claimed to have made never existed. In that folder, sitting just inches from her hand, were the bank statements, the emails, the screenshots that would shatter this woman's illusion of power. But Judy didn't open it yet. She let the silence stretch, just long enough for Vanessa to keep talking herself deeper. Then, with that signature calm voice that always precedes a storm, Judy said, "Ms. Caldwell, people often confuse wealth with credibility. I don't." The courtroom fell completely silent. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But that one line carried the weight of justice itself. And soon, it would be replayed by millions, shared across social media, quoted in headlines, celebrated as the day arrogance met its match. Because what was about to happen next wasn't just another case on television. It was a reminder of something timeless: you can buy luxury, you can buy attention, but you can't buy truth. And the truth was about to hit Vanessa Caldwell harder than any verdict she'd ever heard. Before we unfold this unbelievable takedown, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever seen someone act like they're above the law, hit that like button right now, because this isn't just justice. This is karma with a microphone. Vanessa Caldwell was 43 years old and looked like money had never told her no. Her presence alone demanded attention, not from worth, but from wealth. She moved like the room owed her something. Her diamond necklace caught the light every time she turned her head, refracting flashes that danced across the wooden panels of Judge Judy's courtroom. The media outside had already dubbed her the Manhattan heiress who doesn't lose. She was worth $15 million, maybe more, depending on how the markets treated her father's real estate empire that week. And in her mind, that meant she didn't just belong in court, she owned it. When she took her seat, she didn't sit like a defendant or a plaintiff. She lounged, crossing her legs delicately, brushing an invisible speck of dust from her white blazer as though the air itself needed cleaning before touching her. Her assistant whispered something in her ear, she smiled faintly, then said loud enough for the microphones to catch, "Don't worry, I know the judge personally. I own this place." The comment wasn't meant for her assistant. It was meant for the world, for the cameras, the journalists, the audience, and especially the woman sitting across from her, Dana Ruiz, the event planner she'd dragged into court. That single line, "I own this place," echoed like thunder through the quiet courtroom. The bailiff shifted. Dana froze. But Judy didn't react. She simply looked at Vanessa, the same way a hawk might study a mouse that hasn't yet realized it's being watched. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was patience. And behind that calm stare, she already knew that Vanessa was about to destroy herself, one arrogant sentence at a time. The audience could sense it too. There was something almost cinematic about it, the untouchable heiress, glittering with entitlement, and the legendary judge sitting just feet away, already holding the truth. The contrast was electric. Vanessa spoke with the kind of confidence only inherited, not earned. Every gesture, every eye roll, every exaggerated sigh was a performance rehearsed for years of getting her way. She had a reputation in New York society for being difficult, which was polite talk for ruthless. She'd once sued a restaurant because her reserved table wasn't private enough. She'd fired a maid for serving champagne that wasn't cold. To her, every problem had a price tag, and every person, a value. But today, she'd miscalculated the one variable she couldn't buy, a judge who couldn't care less about her pedigree. Judge Judy said nothing as Vanessa spoke over the opposing attorney, interrupting, correcting, even laughing mid-question as if the courtroom were a cocktail party. The tension was building, quiet and dangerous. Judy's expression never changed, but in that silence was something cold, something that promised an end Vanessa wouldn't see coming. Because for the first time in her life, money had met someone immune to it. And if you've ever met someone like this, the type who thinks money means power, drop a fire in the comments right now. Let's see how many of us have seen arrogance crash in real time. While Vanessa Caldwell entered the courtroom wrapped in diamonds, Dana Ruiz walked in wearing quiet courage. She was 36, a single mother of two, and the owner of a struggling event planning business she had built from her apartment kitchen. Her clothes were simple, her makeup minimal, but her eyes, tired yet unwavering, told a story of sleepless nights, unpaid bills, and unshakable integrity. If Vanessa's wealth was armor, Dana's honesty was her only shield. The irony was cruel. 6 months earlier, Dana had organized one of Vanessa Caldwell's famous charity galas, an event so lavish it could have been mistaken for a royal wedding. The night glittered with champagne fountains and gold-trimmed invitations. Vanessa promised full payment after the event, praising Dana's work publicly. But when the invoices came due, the calls went unanswered. Emails vanished into silence. And the woman who flaunted generosity in public quietly refused to pay a dime. At first, Dana tried to stay professional. She sent reminders, waited patiently, and gave Vanessa every chance to make it right. But the more she waited, the clearer the truth became: Vanessa wasn't planning to pay at all. When Dana finally posted a short, factual statement online, "Our company has not received payment for the Caldwell Foundation Gala," the post went viral overnight. Supporters cheered her bravery. Others warned her she'd just declared war on one of the most connected families in New York. Vanessa's response came swiftly and brutally: a $250,000 defamation lawsuit. Her legal team claimed Dana had irreparably damaged Vanessa's reputation. Dana's clients vanished almost instantly. Bookings dropped. The fear of losing her home grew real enough to taste. And yet, she refused to delete the post. Refused to apologize. Refused to pretend the truth was a lie. Because for Dana, this wasn't just business anymore, it was about dignity. She mortgaged her home to cover legal fees. She sold her car to keep her business alive. And every night, after tucking her kids into bed, she'd sit at the kitchen table under the yellow light and reread the lawsuit, reminding herself that some people fight for survival, while others fight to protect their power. Inside the courtroom, that difference was visible from every angle. On one side, Vanessa shimmered like a walking billboard for privilege; on the other, Dana sat quietly, clutching a worn leather folder, the kind that holds everything you can't afford to lose. The contrast was cinematic: diamonds versus desperation, power versus truth. But the story wasn't as hopeless as it looked. Because unknown to both women, Judge Judy's team had already begun digging into Vanessa's payment records. They had traced the supposed cash payment that Vanessa claimed she made for the gala. And what they found would turn this entire trial upside down. What Vanessa didn't know is that Judy's staff had already uncovered a transaction that would destroy her entire lie. The shift was subtle, almost invisible, but everyone in the courtroom felt it. Judge Judy's voice, calm and deliberate, took on that precise tone she used when the storm was already forming behind her eyes. She leaned forward slightly, hands folded on the bench. "You said you paid cash, Ms. Caldwell. May I see the receipt?" For the first time, Vanessa's perfect smile cracked. It wasn't obvious at first, just a flicker, like a light dimming. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and gave a polished laugh. "Oh, well, my assistant handles all that. I don't really deal with invoices or small payments. I have people for that." Judy didn't blink. "Of course," she said smoothly. "Then let's hear from those people." She turned to the clerk. "Please call the assistant and have her records verified." The room stirred. It wasn't loud, but the atmosphere changed. The air seemed to thicken, the silence stretching as the clerk disappeared into the side office. Phones began to ring behind the scenes. Printers started humming. Screens flickered with bank logs and email threads. Every few seconds, a new document slid across Judy's desk, and with each one, her expression grew colder. Vanessa shifted in her seat, glancing around like the walls had started moving closer. She picked at her manicure, her diamond ring catching the light with nervous flashes. "Your Honor, I don't see why this is necessary. The payment was made in full. The matter is simple." Judy cut her off gently, her tone surgical. "I'll decide what's simple, Ms. Caldwell." Then she looked up, eyes steady. "You said the payment was made the night of the event, correct?" "Yes," Vanessa said quickly. "Right after the gala ended." Judy nodded once. "That's interesting." She turned to the clerk, who was holding a printout. "Because according to your bank records, that withdrawal happened at 10:47 the next morning." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Dana's eyes widened. Even Vanessa's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Judy lifted another page, an email transcript. "And here, Ms. Caldwell, is a message you sent your assistant at 8:23 a.m., instructing her to make it look like payment was handled last night. Would you like to explain that?" Vanessa froze. For the first time, she looked small, trapped inside her own lie. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her voice, when it came, was thin. I was misquoted. You know how emails can be taken out of context." Judy leaned back, calm but deadly. "Context doesn't change timestamps. Facts are stubborn things." The audience was silent now. You could almost hear the heartbeat of the room, the collective realization that the mighty Vanessa Caldwell was beginning to crumble. Judy didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her power was precision. And while the heiress squirmed under that gaze, Judy quietly began building the next step of her trap. Because she wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. If you're loving how calmly Judy builds her trap, don't just watch. Tap that thumbs up right now. This is what real accountability looks like. By the time Vanessa Caldwell took the stand again, her mask of confidence was cracking, but she was too proud to stop performing. She crossed her legs, forced a smile, and turned her gaze toward Dana Ruiz with that same cold smirk that once intimidated entire rooms. "She should be grateful someone like me even hired her," she said, her voice sharp and dismissive. "I put her name in magazines, gave her exposure she could never buy. Now she wants to act like a victim. Please." The words hit the air like poison, and the crowd collectively drew breath. Judge Judy's eyes flicked upward, her tone flat but laced with steel. "Grateful," she repeated slowly. "Grateful for being defrauded?" That single question sliced through the silence like a blade. Vanessa blinked, confused. "Excuse me?" Judy didn't repeat herself. She simply turned to her clerk. "Let's play the footage." The courtroom monitor lit up with grainy surveillance footage from the gala venue, the same night Vanessa claimed to have paid in cash. The video showed her gliding through the ballroom, surrounded by assistants and cameras, waving goodbye to guests. But there was no cash exchange, no stop at the payment table. Just her limousine waiting outside. And then, clear as day, her stepping into the car and driving off. "Would you care to point out the moment where the payment occurs?" Judy asked. Vanessa's lips parted. This must not be the full video. You're missing." Judy raised her hand. "Then perhaps your signature will clarify." She picked up a folder and revealed printed invoices. "These are the receipts from your event. Notice the empty payment section. No initials, no confirmation, no transaction number." She paused, voice quiet but cutting. "You know what's also missing, Ms. Caldwell? Your integrity." The courtroom murmured. Even Vanessa's lawyer shifted in his seat. Judy wasn't done. "Now," she said, glancing toward the door, "let's hear from your assistant." The assistant walked in nervously, clutching a phone and several printouts. Her voice trembled, but her words landed like gunfire. "She told me to mark it as paid and to withdraw the money the next morning. She said, and I quote, 'No one will check, just make it look official.'" The courtroom exploded in whispers. Dana covered her mouth in disbelief. Vanessa's eyes went wide, her posture collapsing as if the weight of her own lies had finally caught up to her. Judge Judy leaned forward, voice low but lethal. "You claimed you owned this courtroom, Ms. Caldwell, but you don't even own your truth." The silence that followed was deafening. Vanessa sat frozen, her empire of arrogance crumbling in real time. Cameras zoomed in. 1,000 people watching at home could feel the shift, the moment when power met accountability. If this right here gave you chills, hit like right now, because we're just getting to the part that broke the internet. The courtroom was dead silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Judge Judy sat motionless, her eyes locked on Vanessa Caldwell, who now looked nothing like the woman who had walked in dripping with confidence and diamonds. The heiress's posture was slumped, her perfect hair slightly undone, her hands trembling against the table. The silence stretched so long that the clicking of a camera from the back of the courtroom sounded like thunder. Then came the sound every viewer waited for, the gavel. One sharp, echoing crack that cut through the tension like lightning. Judy's voice followed, calm and precise, the kind of tone that doesn't need volume to command power. Ms. Caldwell, you came into this courtroom declaring you owned it. You said your wealth made you untouchable. Well, congratulations. You just bought yourself a fraud conviction. The line hit like a physical blow. There was a collective gasp, followed by a stunned silence so heavy it almost rang. And in that silence, one small sound broke through, a metallic clink as one of Vanessa's diamond earrings slipped loose, falling from her ear and rolling across the floor. For a moment, that single earring seemed to symbolize everything, her pride, her wealth, her image, now lying shattered at her feet. Judy continued, voice firm and unwavering. This court finds in favor of the defendant, Ms. Dana Ruiz. You are awarded $250,000 in damages for defamation and the emotional distress caused by this baseless lawsuit. Additionally, I am referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for perjury review. Vanessa's mouth fell open, but no words came out. It was as if her voice, the same voice that once commanded rooms, assistants, and television cameras, had simply vanished. Dana gasped softly, tears filling her eyes. For the first time in months, she could finally exhale. The courtroom erupted, not in chaos, but in emotion. The audience clapped before the bailiff could even call for order. Reporters rushed toward the doors, phones lighting up, microphones flashing. Outside, news vans were already waiting, ready to broadcast the fall of the heiress who once claimed to own the law itself. Vanessa sat frozen, her gaze unfocused. Her attorney leaned in to whisper something, but she didn't respond. Slowly, almost mechanically, she lowered her head. And in that single motion, diamonds dimming under the harsh courtroom lights, the truth of her defeat settled in. For the first time in her life, money couldn't save her. Judge Judy rose, gathered her papers, and turned toward the exit without another word. The audience didn't move until she was gone. The gavel's echo still lingered in the air, mixing with the sound of heels, camera shutters, and the whisper of a name already trending across America. And as Vanessa sat there, alone and humiliated, one line from the narration lingered like a closing note to a symphony of justice. For the first time in her life, her money couldn't save her, and that silence was priceless. By the next morning, the story had already escaped the courtroom and swept across the internet like wildfire. Headlines read, Judge Judy silences Manhattan heiress in viral verdict. News outlets replayed the moment Judy delivered the line, you just bought yourself a fraud conviction, again and again, like an anthem of justice. Hashtags flooded every social media platform, hashtag Judy silenced her, hashtag courtroom karma, hashtag justice for Dana. Clips from the trial hit 10 million views before noon. The fall of Vanessa Caldwell had become a symbol, a modern parable about arrogance, truth, and the limits of money. Vanessa's empire began to crumble faster than anyone expected. Within days, her public relations firm cut ties. Her father's real estate board issued a statement distancing the company from her personal legal troubles. The brands she once represented quietly erased her name from their ambassador lists. Her friends stopped answering calls. Invitations disappeared. The same high society crowd that once praised her elegance now whispered about her downfall. The woman who once boasted she owned a courtroom couldn't even own a single headline anymore, at least, not one that didn't use the word fraud. Meanwhile, Dana Ruiz's life transformed in ways she never could have imagined. Orders began pouring in for her event business. Strangers sent messages of support, small business owners from across America calling her the voice for the voiceless. Talk shows invited her for interviews. A single mother who'd nearly lost everything became a symbol of what happens when honesty stands its ground against privilege. She didn't just win a case, she won back her dignity, and gave courage to thousands who'd been bullied by the powerful. Judge Judy, as always, didn't linger for applause. But the country did it for her. Clips of her calm, fearless tone, the way she dismantled lies without raising her voice, became the gold standard for real justice on TV. Even law professors used the trial to teach how emotional composure can destroy arrogance more effectively than anger ever could. And somewhere deep in her Manhattan penthouse, Vanessa watched it all unfold in silence. The same silence that once belonged to the courtroom was now hers, a reminder that reputation built on lies will always collapse under truth. The moral couldn't have been clearer. In America, the law doesn't care about your last name, it cares about the truth. Justice here doesn't bend to money or power, it bends to facts. And when arrogance walks into a courtroom believing it's untouchable, karma will always be waiting, sometimes wearing a black robe, sometimes holding a gavel. If this story restored your faith in justice, hit that like button till your phone trembles. Comment, "Justice served," below to show your support for every small business that's ever been bullied by someone richer. And don't forget to subscribe, because next, we're covering the senator's son who tried to fire a cop in Judge Judy's courtroom. You won't believe how that ended. The screen fades to black. A single heartbeat sound plays, then Judy's gavel echoes one last time.